Hi, I'm Robert Ward. I'm a writer and written lots of novels, scripts, journalism over the years. The only thing I've never written is a play, and I might even try that this year.
Hi, I'm Farrel Coleman. I'm a writer, though I'm no Bob Ward. And I'm nor am I a Jack Kennedy either. I have written a play, actually, and it was kind of fun, but hasn't been produced. And the one of the writers I admire most is sitting right to my left.
I'm Daniel Woodrell. I know these two guys, so I'm in a hotel room in the daylight.
It is daylight.
Please pay the ransom, whatever they're asking.
Actually, I had sort of an idea I'd throw out if you permit.
Yeah.
I've been discussing many times in recent years with people my feeling about the big overlap between what we might call social realist fiction or working class fiction and crime fiction, the big sweet overlap. And if I made a short list of the books that would hit the sweet spot in that regard, Red Baker would be, you know, right in there, right at the heart of it.
Thank you.
Did you perceive it that way as you were doing it, or do you perceive it that way at all?
That's a good question, and the whole subject is interesting, isn't it? When I was writing Red Baker, first of all, I was writing another book for a long time. It was called Baltimore, and it was about a guy who goes back from New York, where I was living and being a journalist, and he goes back to see his ex-wife and kid in Baltimore. And it was much more about middle-class people and people we grew up with and what happened to them, et cetera, in their 30s. And that book went on for about 800 pages. And it had everything in it from magical realism to pop-up pictures. I mean, it was really, it didn't make it. And one day I realized that I was walking around to get local color, and I realized all the guys I'd seen that I was getting local color, they were the guys I actually wanted to write about. So I threw out that book and just started writing Red Baker from the voice and the character, you know. And I realized that I did have a much greater concern about these guys than I did about my old friends and what happened to them. And I do think, as I wrote it, as I got into it, I began to think, yeah, this book is more like Dreiser and that kind of thing. You know, I didn't think of it as a crime novel at all. No. But then, because I read a lot of crime novels, there became a crime in it and a criminal and sort of a tension because of that, which was nice. But that all happened as it happened. I didn't plan it or anything. The whole thing was sort of by accident.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Dreiser or James T. Farrel or wherever the roots might have extended to underlay it all, and then there is a crime element or an element of crime in it.
Right.
Proper. Think the right way to phrase this, because I don't want to prejudice the answer to the question with the question, and but that book so perfectly illustrated how you can get deeply into a certain milieu, and the social realism of it comes through, and yet it's a very dynamic read. It's not sitting around the kitchen table per se, you know.
No, I didn't want that. I wanted it to have the velocity of a thriller without being a thriller, you know, in a way, I think. Although that's something I'd say after writing it. As I was writing it, I didn't quite know what was going to happen next. And I discovered it as I went, you know, which I think one of the reasons it turned out well is because of that. I didn't even know he was going to commit a crime for a while. Yeah, interesting. You know, and I had him going off looking for jobs, and I thought, well, what would he do next? And I thought, well, if he was in my old neighborhood, he would definitely get involved in some kind of scam.
Well, don't you think that, this is a personal prejudice, I guess, is, for me, the most interesting books are books that play out at street level. Because, I mean, that's where I grew up. So for me, that immediately, and then when I was reading Red Baker, it was like, this seems genuine to me. Yeah. This is not somebody playing at this guy. This is somebody who knows this guy. And so I knew this guy, and I can relate to this guy. And I think, you know, you can have all sorts of lofty plots, but if it doesn't play down in the street, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's got to have a kind of authenticity. I spent a lot of time with these guys, drinking in bars and talking to them, and actually talking to them about, you know, things like when you lose your job, what's it like? And they'd say, well, the first week it's like a party. And I thought, it's like, because we're just getting time off, you know, and it's fun. We're all like kids again. And that's when I had them throwing snowballs at each other. So by the second week, you start to get nervous, you start drinking a little bit. By the third and fourth week, you're drinking at home by yourself, and nobody wants to go out or even talk to each other because you're ashamed, you're humiliated, and you're scared shitless. And these guys were, you know, these are guys you wouldn't think of as articulate. You know, they were guys that barely finished high school, went straight to the mill, but they were extremely articulate about their feelings, and they could actually divide them up like into the weeks and how you felt after the 6th week and the 7th week when you were just so depressed.
Yeah.
And that's when you started going to that doctor and sold speed. And I actually went to that doctor and stood in line with those guys. It was amazing because when you went into the doctor's office, he didn't have a secretary. He just sat behind a desk. I was waiting for a secretary.
Handing out scripts.
Yeah. I thought I was going to have to make up something, you know. Like he said, "What do you need?" I said, "How about some amphetamine?" "Okay." "Need any downers?" "Yeah." Well, I got them. And when the book came out in Baltimore, one of the guys who reviewed the book, I can't remember his name now, said, "This can't happen. We don't believe it." And all these guys that I wrote about wrote in to the Sun saying, not only can it happen, here's where the guy's office is. And he apologized to me later. It's interesting because these guys living in Baltimore knew nothing about it.
Yeah. So let's flip that around to you. I mean, you write about an unusual, for most Americans, it seems like a pretty foreign country. And when you're writing about those places which seem incredibly real to me, are you trying to say something, or are you just trying to entertain me?
Well, I'm attracted to the realities of the kinds of lives of the characters I write about, and obviously you can't really choose your subject. I started out, my earliest short stories when I was a teenager, which unfortunately don't survive, those that I remember anything about would still fit more or less in what I'm doing now. I hope it's better written now. Sometimes you live in fear of seeing some old thing and say, wow,
I was good then.
I was good then.
I was better than.
Right.
I could have been somebody.
But I think one of the reasons Ozark attracts me so much is it's vanishing so quickly. A generation or two ago, it was, you know, the accent was deeper. Television didn't penetrate. We didn't have television. Even when I started living there as an adult, you could get one channel from Springfield part of the time, and you could get a public television from Arkansas part of the time, and that was it. Unless you had a gigantic antenna, which most of us didn't. So that kind of thing, and the major highways went around us because they didn't want to blow their way through the Arkansas hills, and so the cultural isolation was pretty profoundly still there, and it still is, but it's, you know, of course, rapidly vanishing. And for a long time there was no reason to move there economically. You wouldn't move there looking to better yourself. You might end up there for one reason or another, but that's not where you would go.
Which is how your carriage is often like in Tomato Red. You end up there.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a place to end up.
So they were still referring to it, sociologists, as a semi-arrested frontier society.
Semi-arrested?
Semi-arrested frontier society. Pretty good title.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got it. Dibs.